Good morning, YouTube. This is Dr. Kevin Hintz, and I'm doing a shout out today from my house as I'm not working today. I didn't have any emergency patients in my practice, so I figured what a good time to have a cup of coffee and maybe talk a little bit about, the unknowns of getting through this COVID scare as a business owner. And the first thing I have to mention is that, we do have options to still work, but not at full capacity. So I know some colleagues of mine that fully shut down, so they're not working a day until it's mandated that we can. However, we are essential. And for those of us who do elect to see emergency patients, hats off to you guys. And there's so many people out there that I've been seeing, even in a limited capacity, that would end up at the ER urgent care. So I think it's a good thing that we do keep our doors open and help these people avoid the hospitals and, um, help our medical colleagues not having to deal with toothaches and jaw infections. So that's kind of what our role is, I think, through this whole COVID deal. But our other roles, because most of us dentists are private practice owners, we have an obligation to our employees. We have an obligation to staff members to make sure that we're kind of viable and around for them so they do have a job. And, one thing that I'm sure that you guys have heard about, the PPP, or the Payroll Protection Plan, put forth by our government. And if you have not applied for it, or if you haven't heard about it, I'm going to touch briefly on what it is and how to go about it. So the Payroll Protection Plan is put in place for us small business owners, and it's really meant for paying our staff and keeping a staff working while we can't work at full um, capacity, and it prevents our employees from going on unemployment. So, and it also assures us as small business owners that we do have a staff once the country opens up again. And how it works, it's a 75-25 loan. Very, very cheap loan. There's no closing costs or opening costs or bank costs to it. The interest rate's at 1%, and the interest rate activates from day one. So as soon as the funds hit your bank, you get interest charged right away. And but at 1%, the interest and the amount that you have can be 100% forgivable as long as you follow the 75-25, that how it's currently written. And that simply means that 75% of the funds has to go to payroll expenses, and the other 25% is meant for other qualified expenses such as rent, mortgage interest, and utilities. So as long as you follow these guidelines at the end of the program or end of your stipending period, it is 100% forgivable, including the interest. So in my eyes, it's free money as long as you use it how it's meant to be used. Okay, so with that being said, how does one go about acquiring the funds? Well, if you hadn't already, you want to go to the government's website. Just go to Google and type in PPP program or SBA PPP loan, and it should take you to the main government website. And if you navigate through the front page, you will see something that says download application. And the application is really straightforward versus a normal loan that one would get for a practice. So they're not going to ask for any personal financial statements. They're not going to ask for a P&L, any kind of accounting numbers. The only thing they will be asking for number wise is your average 12-month of payroll for 2019, including taxes. So based upon your monthly average, they will give you 2.5 times your monthly average for qualified expenses and payroll. So that simply means that the loan will get you through the next 2.5 months to run at a skeletal level to have a staff. So um, you download the application, you fill it out, and on the website, they do have a link of qualified local banks, whether they're large or community banks, that are offering this funding program. And I would advise that's the first thing I would do is download it, and I would get the list of local banks, and I would call and ask them if they are still taking applicants. And when I ran across it a week and a half ago, there were 6 local banks. Where one of my practices is out in Post Falls, and they all were not taking applications at the moment. They said, hang out. We'll give you maybe the next week or so. We'll be able to get you in and process your application. So hang low, hang tight. And sure enough, within a couple days, I got a call from my local bank, and they said, okay, now I can submit my application. And then I got approved within 2 hours, but I didn't get the funding for about a week. So, because the funds need to be released to the banks from the federal government, and then you can utilize those funds for your practice operations. And so it's a pretty straightforward process, but it's a first come, first serve. So if right now you're okay and you're fine, but we don't know when the country's going to open, so this thing could last another 2 months. So I would advise at least call your bank and get your application in, and if you don't use the money, then return it. But you don't know when you will need it. So moving forward with this, so what am I going to do with the funds? Well, of course, I'm going to follow the mandate, and I'm going to employ my hygienists, I'm going to employ my assistants and my front end, but I don't have patience for my hygienist. So what am I doing? Well, I'm offering them work. I'm not just going to have them sit at home and collect a paycheck. Okay, it doesn't work like that. I'm going to keep them employed by bettering my practice. And how we're doing that is we're giving it a facelift. We're going to paint the office, clean things up, go through old charts, go through auto note, sharpen instruments. I mean, there's so much we can do in our practices that usually get put off because we're busy with patient care, and then an emergency shows up, and then if you're like me, then you got to do accounting and other managerial duties or administrative duties because I am the office manager in my practice. So now's a great time to reboot yourself. And when the country opens, then not only will you have your staff, you'll have a better practice out of this. Okay. So I think one of the important things of this program as well is that you account for those funds. And I think the best way to go about this, isn't taking the check, putting it in your checking account for your business and tracing it only through your QuickBooks. I think it would be smart to have a separate new savings account through the same bank. And then once payroll hits and rent hits, you do a transfer to that ACH account that you're going to use for your typical payroll and your rent. And then as you transfer the money, you make a notation of that this is for payroll period, blah, 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 or this is for rent for month X. And then that is just one way to make it very transparent. And my understanding is from my banker is that that is key, is you have to make this very transparent where the money's going. So do yourself a favor, become a more diligent accountant through this process and account for those funds so you're not having audits and you're not having all these weird things happen, or having, worst case, having to pay the loan off that was supposed to be forgiven. So I think as long as you do that, you'll be just fine, but don't drag your feet any longer if you hadn't done the loan already. But reinvent yourself. And I know it's tough because, we work so hard to get where we are. And It's already tough in this climate to be a solo practitioner owning your own practices with the DSOs out there. But I think a positive mindset and a wonderful staff who supports you, and if you show that you got their back through this horrible time, they're going to work twice as hard for you once the doors open up again. And so I think this is a good time to show your devotion to your team members as they hopefully show to you throughout the year, and show that you truly got their back. Okay, so um, take this negative and put it into a positive. But if you hadn't done it, get on there today, get that loan, call your bank. So, with that being said, hopefully you got a little bit of information that will better help you better understand this program and help you guys out through this time of closure. I'm going to hopefully start posting more frequent videos on some lectures that I can't do right now personally because of the shutdown. So I'm going to try to post some of them here and maybe give you guys some entertainment, some education. And then I want everyone to stay safe and stay tuned. Thanks for watching.